Hi everyone, this is Dr. Rachel Gall, your Denver JDS psychologist. Today I would love to share some thoughts that I have with you about parenting during the coronavirus, during this time that we are all home with our families. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and hopefully you'll still be able to see me. Okay, there we go. So I just want to say that I am really missing all of you, partly because I've been home almost the entire year now on maternity leave, this whole school year, and also because we are all home right now. So I'm really looking forward to our time together starting next school year, but for now we are all doing this remotely. So these days, parents, you as a parent, maybe finding yourself in a new role or new roles, including full-time working professional, housekeeper, short order cook, homeschool teacher, all while navigating a global pandemic. This is not normal. What we're experiencing is not normal at all. I would describe it as a trauma, as traumatic, a collective global trauma. Some of us are afraid for our lives. We're witnessing others being afraid for their lives, and this experience is changing the lives of many, many people around the globe. I hope that this talk today will give us a space to step back a little bit and reflect on what this experience has been like for us as parents, how we can cope with this very unusual situation while still being able to be there for our children and making sure that they feel safe and supported. So I'd like to just look over this slide a little bit. These are some common responses to stress that you might see in yourselves and your children. As we talk about this, I want to encourage all of you to view these behaviors through a different lens, not necessarily as behaviors to be managed or dealt with or stopped, but instead I want to challenge you to see these behaviors as safety seeking and comfort seeking during a time of stress and fear. So let's talk about some of these. I have them split up between what you might see in young children, older children, and adults. So in young children, probably the most common response to stress that we see is regression. So things like whining, tantrums, accidents, clinginess, things like that. So if we're looking through this with a lens of seeing these behaviors as safety seeking, then you can begin to understand how children may want to go back to a safer time, a time where they can elicit care and safety and comfort from us through these behaviors, again, as opposed to behaviors that are annoying or frustrating or need to be managed from us. So we also know that young children don't always have the words to be able to put to their own experiences, so you may see more behaviors that demonstrate this need for safety and comfort. So things like nightmares, tummy aches, rigidity, sensitivity, tearfulness, picking fights with siblings, being hyperactive, and we may also see themes of doctors, germs, and sickness in their play. For older children, we may see a lot of self-judgment or criticism of others, perfectionism, again, maybe as a way to feel a little bit more control, feel like there's something within their power at the moment. We might see sleeping too much, staying up late, sleeping in the morning, binge watching Netflix, scrolling through social media, lots of gaming. Oppositional behavior, testing limits, substance use, sexual experimentation. Again, I want to remind all of us that perhaps we could see these behaviors as seeking comfort or safety during a fearful time. Trouble with organization and focus, procrastination, motivation, things like that. And we'll talk about why we see these behaviors in a moment. Adults, we often see a lot of the same feelings, just it might look a little different. So hyper-focus on work or children, compulsively checking the news, over-preparing. So, we all have heard about people buying up all the toilet paper and things like that as a way to feel like we have a little piece of control in this uncontrollable situation. Ruminations and getting stuck in our head, getting stuck in our thoughts, and sort of spinning our wheels without really being able to do much with that kind of energy. Insomnia, hypersomnia, somatic complaints like muscle tension or stomach upset. You might feel bottled up, you might feel angry or irritable, you might blame others. Substance use, perhaps disguised as healthy coping. So we all may be joking about drinking more wine these days. Feelings of burnout, overwhelm, exhaustion, helplessness, things like that. So many of these responses are actually what happens when we avoid our feelings. And we'll talk a little bit how to sit with our feelings and move through them in a healthy way in a moment. But I would like to talk about the three of the most uncomfortable emotions that we may be feeling right now. The ones that we perhaps work the hardest to push away or to avoid or really hope that they are not there. And those emotions are fear, shame, and grief. Let's talk about fear. So there's so much fear and uncertainty right now. We're asking ourselves questions like, am I going to get sick? Do I have enough money to get through this? Children may be afraid that their parents are going to get sick. Perhaps as a parent, you may be expected to engage in totally different new roles that you feel ill-equipped for, particularly if you're the parent who is not used to doing more of the caretaking of the home or your children. So the purpose of fear is to keep us safe. It's an adaptive response to a threat. And we know that all animals have the same survival response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So you may recognize yourself in one of these. Do you tend to get angry when you feel stressed out? Do you start feeling paralyzed and helpless? Do you withdraw? That might give you clues about what your typical response to fear or anxiety might be. So we know physiologically what happens when we feel fear is that the body is directing resources towards the physical activation system. So there's a sharp increase in cortisol and adrenaline. Our breathing becomes rapid and shallow, and our bodies increase blood flow to our extremities and to our muscles so that we're at the ready to react. By the way, this is why deep breathing is so effective. So if we take big, deep belly breaths, we might also call that diaphragmatic breathing. We're actually stretching and stimulating the vagus nerve, which is right next to the diaphragm, and that actually stimulates our brain's relaxation response. So the more that we can practice our diaphragmatic breathing, the more we're actually building our vagal nerve tone so that we become more and more quickly responsive to taking those deep breaths. And we're able to become more responsive with practice to stimulating our brain's relaxation response. And we're able to relax more quickly. Okay, so under stress, our bodies are also directing resources away from higher order functions like our frontal lobes. So we know that our frontal lobe is in charge of things like having good judgment, motivation, planning, organizing, focusing, and learning. So right now, we are all expecting our children who, under normal conditions, their frontal lobes wouldn't be fully developed until they're 25 or 30 years old. So we're actually expecting right now for them to be educating themselves, for them to be learning and taking in information when they feel afraid, when they feel scared that nothing is normal, and maybe they're afraid that someone that they love is going to get sick or die. Brains can't learn unless they feel safe. That is a necessary prerequisite to learning. And many of us do not feel safe right now. Our children don't feel safe, and yet we're expecting them to learn and retain information. Okay, let's talk about shame. Shame is asking, am I worthy? Am I good enough? I'm part of this really amazing Facebook group. Many of you might be members also. So it has great ideas for parents, for activities, for coping strategies. Really, what do we do to get through this time when we're quarantined with our family? And based on what I'm reading in this group, I'm really learning a lot about what parents, especially mothers, feel like they should be doing right now, what they feel like they're supposed to be doing. So I've learned that we should all be making family scrapbooks together to document our time at home. We should be taking up yoga to start a self-care routine and have some time to ourselves. We should be planting victory gardens so that we can sustain our family in an emergency. We should be sewing personalized masks for healthcare workers in our spare time. We should be deep cleaning and sanitizing our homes. We should be making inspirational chalk art for our neighbors. And if this all wasn't enough, the admins of the group actually had to make a post that said that they were limiting the number of wine names out of concern that the group is advocating for unhealthy coping methods. So given all of this, what I take from it is that it is just astounding how much pressure parents are putting on themselves right now, and how much shame there is over not being able to do it all. So on top of this, we're also supposed to be grateful for what we have right now. But maybe you read this stuff and you say, what if I'm drowning? What if I don't like being with my kids this much? What if I haven't organized my closets or taken up a new hobby? What if I'm not grateful for this time? And then we feel ashamed. So of course we can't do it all. We are all being asked to do multiple full-time jobs simultaneously during a time of war, as some people are calling it. Maybe we could say instead, what kind of a culture are we living in that makes us feel like we're a failure unless we're even doing crisis parenting perfectly and documenting it on social media? We have this cultural obsession with productivity, and we have these unbelievably high, unreasonable standards that we're holding ourselves to. Um, my challenge would be to say now is the time to be gentle and compassionate with ourselves and consider this a time of survival, um, rather than feeling guilty or ashamed that we're not doing enough. Okay, grief. We are experiencing so many losses right now. You know, much of this is kind of highlighted in what children right now are experiencing. So graduation, field day, sitting in the staircase, hanging out, having lunch with their friends, high-fiving their favorite teacher. These are tangible, concrete losses that our children are grieving right now. I want to say here too that kids who maybe aren't as verbal might even have a more difficult time right now because the only social outlet is to chat with friends online. So if certain kids are feeling more connected to their friends with physical contact, like maybe sports or getting to run around at recess, maybe they feel like soccer is the only place where they really belong and can be with their friends, be connected without having to talk. This might be especially hard for that kind of kid. So we're also experiencing abstract losses, the loss of structure to our day. Structure can be hard to come by when you're managing lots of kids or lots of adults with full-time work schedules. We have lost our sense of safety. Many of us feel right now like our world will never be the same. We thought it was safe, and now it doesn't feel safe anymore. So right now I would like you to think of one of your children and sort of what they do, what they need when they are upset, so when they feel scared. Um, my guess is that many of you may be thinking about things like needing physical proximity, needing a hug or a snuggle, um, just listening without giving advice, helping them really feel seen and heard, um, sending the message from parents like, you know, I accept what you're feeling, I honor what you're feeling, I'm curious about what you're feeling. Um, all of these responses are really an indication that what we need, what all people need, children and adults in terms of fear, is safety. Who provides safety? Attachment figures, caregivers. And I want to say now that we don't grow out of meeting the people that we're close with under times of stress. So just as children need their parents or their caregivers when they're feeling afraid, adults also need that. That could be from your partner, it could be from God, it could be from friends, it could be from your own parents, that we don't grow out of needing safety and comfort when we feel afraid. What we do get better at as we get older is regulating our own emotions in order to be a non-anxious presence for our children when they feel afraid. We know that children take their cues about safety from us, from their caregivers, and we can certainly send that message to them. So what I've been talking about is called co-regulation. So the concept that we regulate our own emotions in the presence of others that we feel close and connected to. So I often talk about this as the myth of the coping skill. In our individualistic culture, we often focus a lot on learning coping coping skills and self-regulation. So we think if I could just have enough coping skills in my toolbox, then I'll be okay. If I could just learn how to do mindfulness or yoga better, then I'll be okay. But what the research really shows us is that healthy coping starts with co-regulation. From infancy, we regulate our emotions by connecting with our loved ones. So that's where it starts. We need to feel safe, and then we can start learning coping skills and self-regulation. These are certainly useful tools to have. But it starts with that sense of safety and co-regulation with our caregivers and our parents. Okay, let's talk about what to do and what not to do right now. So we have this concept of comparative suffering. So I know that I certainly can get caught up in this, saying things like, oh, you can see your friends over FaceTime, why are you complaining? You don't get to say work is stressful while I'm out here keeping your children alive. Doctors and nurses are risking their lives. How can I worry about money right now? We need to remember that it's not a contest. The person who has it worst of all is not the only person who's allowed to have feelings about their own experience. We are all entitled to our feelings, even if we think that someone else has it worse. So what we can do is validate feelings, validate the feelings of ourselves, validate the feelings of others, children. So saying things like, what's the scariest part of all this? What's the hardest part? What do you miss about school? You're worried that your friends will forget about you. It makes sense that you're angry that you can't have a graduation party. It's so unfair. Even if you're the one, as a parent, who said that they couldn't have a graduation party. So we remember that validation of others' emotions does not necessarily equal approval. So we don't have to agree or disagree with another person's emotions. That's just the way that they feel. Our feelings are our feelings. They just happen. Validation is also not it's not problem solving. It's not jumping in and rescuing someone from the way that they feel or trying to take it away or make it better. It's not about offering advice. That can often actually be invalidating. So really, we can trust that our presence and our acknowledgement and our empathy is enough. We can also model experiencing our own feelings and coping with them in a healthy way. So saying to our kids, here's what I'm doing right now to calm down. Here's what stressed me out in a developmentally appropriate way. I'm feeling really stressed out. I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling scared. And here's what I'm doing to try and help myself. So when we validate feelings, whether that's our own or our children's, it means that we're sitting with that discomfort instead of avoiding. So all of the behaviors that we were talking about earlier that we see in young children through adults, like we said, those are often indications that we need, that we're looking for a sense of safety and comfort, and maybe really avoiding feelings of fear or anxiety or discomfort that come along with this time right now. So what we can do, how we can really sit with our feelings, is to first acknowledge them. Try to find a word for them. Try to describe to ourselves what it feels like in our thoughts and our emotions and our body to be experiencing this feeling. And listen to it. Listen to what it's telling us. Listen to the messages that it's sharing with us. And we often find that if we can really sit with our feelings without trying to make them go away, without avoiding them, when we can listen to them with compassion and honor what they're trying to tell us, we often find that our feelings become less scary, less overwhelming. We learn to trust ourselves that we can really handle whatever feelings we have instead of trying to avoid them or make them go away. Um, we find that if we're really moving through our feelings, they will transform on their own. They will transform naturally, and become less scary. Okay, so there's been lots of talk these days about structure. Um, Ideas like we should all have structure, we should all have a routine. That may very well work for many families. It may not work for yours. So doing things like forcing a schedule, mandating schoolwork, micromanaging, these are all things that may not be helpful at this time. What I think is that we should do what works. So some people, some children need more structure and routine to feel safe. Other children may need a lot more free time right now. We want to allow leniency and flexibility for ourselves at work, for our children at school, and reframe and challenge these expectations of productivity that we have. So whether that is, oh, I have to put in a certain amount of cleaning today, we have to get a certain number of assignments done, things like that. We have to really focus on what's important instead of trying to be as productive as we can right now. At our school, at Denver JDS, we did a survey very early in this process when we were just starting out the remote learning. And so we surveyed parents to just see how the remote learning was going. And the results were very polarized. It was really interesting. Some families reported feeling extremely overwhelmed with the amount of work that was expected of them. Other families said, this is hardly enough. We need more assignments. We need more structure. We need a schedule for the day. And I know at first I thought, okay, what do we do with this? Why are we getting such discrepant results? But thinking more about it, I think it's really a reflection of what our children really need during this time and how that's so different. Some children need lots and lots of routine and structure. Others just need more free time to feel comfort and safety. Okay, so empty promises. Often when we are going through something hard or scary, we want to say things to our children like, I promise I will keep you safe. Everything is going to be okay. We're not going to get sick. We might feel like, hoarding toilet paper is somehow going to protect us from bad things happening. But really, while our intention is to make our children feel better by saying these things, they are not enforceable. We can't promise that our children are going to be safe. We can't say that everything's okay. Maybe it won't. We might get sick. So what we can do instead is build resilience and trust. So the goal of this, of helping children during any kind of tragedy or crisis, is to help children regain a sense of internal safety and trust and empower them. So what we can do is build that by asking questions like, after we get through this, what will you be most proud of? Really working with ourselves to say, I trust that I will handle it if I get sick, and believing it. And that's a hard place to get to, but really walking yourself through, okay, what would we do as a family if this happened? And then talking with our children, saying things like, let's make a plan so we know what to do. Just like you would do with, the first time that your kids stay home alone by themselves, you walk them through it. The first time one of them babysits, whatever it may be, your plan if there's a fire at your house. So it helps us feel a sense of control and internal trust if we have a plan. So particularly for younger children, they need repetitive, small doses of accurate, developmentally appropriate information. This might look like really managing the amount of news that you're consuming, just picking a couple of your favorite trusted news outlets and making sure that you're consuming news in small doses. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we found a book called My School is Closed Today. You can find it online. It's just a PDF. And it talks about how we're all staying home to keep everyone safe and healthy, and how much we're looking forward to coming back together with our friends and our teachers after our school opens. So my daughter is really happy during the day. She loves getting to be home with us, but she asks for this book to be her bedtime story every night. And that is the time where she is really open with her feelings. She might cry a little bit. She talks about how much she misses her friends and her teachers. And it's been, I think, over a month now that she's asked to read this book every night. So again, that repetition, telling the story over and over about what's happening and allowing her a little space to talk about her feelings is really what she seems to need to process all of this. So again, repetition, small doses of accurate information can be helpful in developing that internal sense of resilience and trust and safety. Okay, so instead of avoiding our feelings, we've talked a lot about this, whether we're avoiding our feelings by using wine, alcohol, marijuana, things like that, mindless scrolling through social media. Maybe we're avoiding our feelings by absolutely immersing ourselves into work projects right now. What we can do is really, really connect. So, right now we're doing that within our families, but kids also need that sense of connection with their friends and with their teachers and extended family as well. So doing things like having intentional family time, being playful, laughing together, using this time, if you relate to this, to do acts of service and gratitude. So many people feel like one of the silver linings of this experience is the sense of universal connectedness. So we're all engaging in this collective act of love and protection of our elders. We're bringing our families closer. We're honoring the people in our society who are more vulnerable. And for some people, again, that may feel like a sense of connectedness that maybe wasn't there before. We also know that we feel connected with others when we're vulnerable. So when we're going through this process of validating our feelings, talking about the fear that we have, things like that, that process creates connection and safety and comfort when we are being open with each other, when we are being vulnerable. I wanted to talk, so I've gotten a number of questions about what do I do if my kid is refusing to do schoolwork? What what I would say to that is that that sense of connection and safety has to be a prerequisite to getting any sort of schoolwork done. So you might want to just take schoolwork off the table for a day or two, spend time together as a family, spend time laughing and having fun, talking about feelings, talking about what's behind not wanting to do the schoolwork, and taking that pressure off the table for a little bit. And then you can start working back in maybe a conversation with a teacher about maybe adjusting the work that's being asked. Maybe you want to throw in a couple of really high value rewards for getting schoolwork done, if that's your thing. But I really want to highlight that, like we said before, that brains cannot learn unless they feel safe. So we have to go through this process of helping our children feel safe and connected and validating what they're feeling in order for them to get to a place where they can really engage with their schoolwork. All right. Here's a list of a very incomplete list of values that you may have. I would like everyone to please take a look at this list. You're welcome to add to it if you see something that you value that's not on here. I'm not talking about kind of general values that you have, but really specific things that you are valuing during this time at home with your children. So perhaps you value your children's education. Perhaps you value your physical health. You value your career and your financial security. You value being a good parent. You value having a clean house. Let's take just a moment to think about what you really value most during this time. And after you've come up with a couple of them that are at the very top of your list, I would like you to rank order them. What's number one? What do you value in this moment above all else? What's number two? What's number three? Really think about what you value during this time that we have at home together. Okay. So the reason that many of you are feeling so overwhelmed right now as parents is because we have competing values. There are all of these things that we find very, very important in our lives, and we just can't do it all. There just isn't enough time. There aren't enough hours in the day. We cannot do it all. It's impossible. So when we have these competing values and we're sort of forced to choose, one reason that we get anxious is because our behavior is not lining up with our values. So, for example, I might really value being a patient parent, but that patience is very much tested when, for example, my daughter takes 45 minutes to put on a pair of shoes. That's a very benign example, but I'm sure we can all think of many more. So in that moment, if I'm being short-tempered, if I start getting really frustrated, then I might also feel anxious or feel annoyed with myself because my behavior, being short-tempered, is not lining up with what I truly value, which is being a patient parent. So we can ask ourselves the question, what do I value most in this moment? What will I choose with intention? And I think perhaps the most important question, what am I intentionally choosing to let go of in this moment in service of what's most important? What am I choosing to let go of in this moment in service of what's most important? So maybe you, this evening, maybe you really value having a clean home, and you also really value family time. So there's a big pile of dishes in the sink. Maybe you could say to yourself, right now, in this moment, I am choosing to forego doing that huge pile of dishes in service of spending more time with my children. If you can make it a choice, if you can make it intentional, then the guilt goes away. And you're saying you can look at that pile of dishes and honor them and say, I see those dirty dishes as a sign that I am making the right choice right now. I'm choosing to spend time with my kids. The dishes can wait. Maybe it's not what other people would choose to do in this moment. Maybe it's not what I'll do tomorrow. Maybe it's not what I'll do in 15 minutes, but I can choose that with pride right now, with a sense of feeling like that is the most important thing in this moment. So I have a list of resources for all of you. These are some of my favorite things that I've come across during this time. Some of them are designed for younger children, some are for older children or adults, but please use these resources. Please know that I am also here. You can reach out to me by phone or by email. I really want to be sure to be a resource for our whole Denver JDS family right now. I did also want to mention, as we're talking so much about coping and feeling afraid and feeling overwhelmed, there may come a point where you feel like you need professional help. And I want to talk about that for a moment. When do you know that you might need a therapist or a mental health professional? So if you feel paralyzed by anxiety, if you feel so overwhelmed that you can't get out of bed, if you feel like you're over relying on drugs or alcohol to help get you through, if you have thoughts of hurting yourself or hurting your family members, I really want to make sure everyone knows that help is out there. Please call me. I also want to make sure everyone knows that almost all therapists around the country right now have transitioned fully to a telehealth platform. So what that means is that any therapist is going to be available to have therapy sessions. You don't need to feel isolated in your home. Please reach out if you feel like you can't cope. Those services are if therapy was covered by your insurance in the past, then teletherapy will be covered now and in the future. So please know that there are resources out there. And again, I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions about yourself or your children. If you think therapy would be helpful and aren't sure where to start, I'm happy to be a resource. So I hope that all of you found this webinar helpful. I know that it was nice for me to think about all of our parents, all of our students and families together at this time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you all in person soon. Okay, take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon.